time, if you were on board with us, we did The Big Leap Part 1. And this week, we're going to do The Big Leap Part 2. Eric introduced me to this book called The Big Leap, I don't know, probably years ago.
Right.
And I resisted and resisted and resisted reading it. And for whatever reason, I finally decided to pick it up and read it in the past couple of months, and I am blown away. So yet again, if I had only listened to Eric earlier, my life would be better than it actually is.
I'm just going to put that on record for my wife.
Yeah. There you go. Sorry, Amy. But anyway, so Gay Hendricks wrote a book called The Big Leap. And in our last episode, we spent some time talking about limiting beliefs and how they can impact your life and your finances. And this time, what we're going to talk about is a concept called zones of genius. So Eric, do you want to elaborate just a little bit on what that is?
Yeah, sure. So zone of genius is this idea that you certain things that you do, you're at multiple levels. So the first level is zone of incompetence. We had a conversation with some advisors the other day, and she says, man, I'm really excited because I get to run around and try to manage a couple of 15-month-old twins this week. And I thought, man, that is my zone of incompetence. I don't understand that. I suck at it in all levels. I'm not doing that. So zone of incompetence. There's the zone of competence. I know how to do these things, but it's not something that's particularly exciting. Lots of people know how to do this thing. And I joked that it was sort of like driving a car, right? Yeah, I can drive a car. Well, good for you. So can 330 million other people. But then you have the zone of excellence, which is the skill that you've cultivated and you've built out over the years. You've gotten good at it, and it's something that's kind of yours. It's kind of where you live. It's that comfortable spot of this is where my career is, or this is what I do really well. And then this other end of it, then in Gay Hendricks's term, the big leap, is towards this idea of a zone of genius, that thing that really is just you. Like that's one thing that only you can do in your way. And it's a thing that makes you sort of uniquely you. And so that his push is get out of your zone of incompetence and out of your zone of excellence into that zone of genius.
Right. And so I think what's really key here is the ability to identify your superpowers, because we all have superpowers, but I think frequently the superpowers come so naturally that you don't realize how special it is because it's just a thing you do. And yep. Mike and I actually were having this conversation driving to and from the lake this past weekend. And I was like, what's really amazing about one of the things that is really amazing about him is that in a work environment, he has this unique ability to identify competency and delegate to the right people for maximum output with minimal input. Right. And I think that speaks specifically to being able to see other people's zone of genius and then to give them that particular work and encourage them to flourish with that.
And is he a relator? Do you remember?
I don't think so. I'd have to go back and look. Relator on the Strengths Finder.
Yeah.
I don't think so. That might be middle of the pack for him, but he has harmony really high. So he's really good at collaboration and consensus and getting people on board towards a mission.
And high and deliberative. So that helps him on that side. Okay.
Yeah, he's very, very, and I think he's probably high on strategic too, but I'd have to pull out his Strengths Finder to see it.
What a cool combo.
But it's so neat to me because, if I were to identify some of his zone of genius, some of it is, he's just really good at getting his way. Like, it doesn't matter what outcome he's looking for. Like, people want to give it to him in a way that, like, if we're dealing with any kind of customer service issue, I don't even try. Because I'm so outcome focused that sometimes I alienate the other person, but he just has a 5-minute conversation and people will give him whatever he wants. I mean, it is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen.
Didn't he upgrade you guys from like coach at the hotel to a suite? In 5 minutes?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a perfect example of it. So we were just traveling and we had gotten 2 rooms and they were supposed to be adjoining with the door in between. And they gave us adjacent rooms that were not adjoining, And adjacent and adjoining are, I guess, synonymous, but I guess there's some differences here. There was no door in between the room.
Right.
So it was going to be an adult in each room and a kid in that room. And this was during a major conference when the hotel was completely booked out. And so he just marches down and starts talking to the person who's in charge of rooms. And they're like, well, we don't have any more adjoining rooms. So, and me, I'd be like, okay, well, what other options do we have? And I probably would have been annoyed at that point, but I know better than to deal with this problem myself.
Right.
And so he just has this lovely conversation with the person at the front desk, and they're like, sir, we're going to upgrade you to a 2-room suite. So we ended up with like a corner suite with 2 full rooms, a living room, a full kitchen. I mean, like, it was like unbelievable. And
Right.
she's like, we'll take care of it, sir. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. And I'm just standing there completely flabbergasted because she was like so happy to make him happy. And I'm like, this is incredible, right? But it's to that zone of genius. And I think for him, partly, so he's the director of litigation for a pretty sizable company that has a national presence. And he seems to manage this entire workflow, incredibly efficiently, where I think I would be stressed out if I was doing his job all the time. And it's just because he is so good at discovering competency and identifying it quickly. It's to me, I think sometimes because I have that individualization trait, I see potential, and
Right.
because he doesn't, he sees actual. Right. Like I'm like, ooh, there's a little seed here that needs to be watered and grown, and it can grow into this beautiful tree. And he is like, that's a seed, that's a tree. I'll take the tree. Like, but his ability to identify that to me is a zone of genius. And when I was talking to him about it, he's like, what, other people don't do that? And I was like,
No.
are you kidding me? No, other people don't do that. But I think a lot of times we don't see our own genius because it just feels normal to us. And I think that's part of the reason that people have imposter syndrome, to some of the questions from the last one,
Right.
is that if you think it's just normal to do that, you don't have an appreciation of how special you actually are.
Well, and that's why we've had this conversation before. I think you walk into every room, and the right way to walk into every room and with every person you meet is with a mixture of grace and awe. Like, they're amazing at something and they're fighting some terrible battle. And so if you can remember that with every human you meet, you've got a better shot at like finding those things out and like interacting with them in the right way, because there's some area that they have complete incompetence at. And you've made this conversation,
Right.
you've made this statement before, and my wife has made this statement before. She's like, you seem smart, yet some days I'm wondering how you actually tie your shoes and make it out the door.
That's me too, though.
Right.
Like,
And
it's everyone.
so I think we also look at this, well, I suck in these things. I'm really incompetent in all these areas. So how can I be genius in some area too?
So I think if we're talking to upper limit, the zone of excellence is really, I think, in some ways the biggest problem, because I know there are things I'm incompetent at. I don't even try and do them. I just try and find somebody else. Like if I have an IT issue, I'm just like, someone help me. I don't even try, because I know I'm incompetent when it comes to IT issues. And then when you think about competency issues, these are things that you can do, but so can everyone else. Right. And so whatever, you can do
Driving a
them.
car, tying my shoes, right? Whatever.
Right. You can do that. So can everyone else. Excellence, though, I think is the sticky point, because it's stuff that we have built skills in that we can do usually better than anyone else, or better than most people. And because of that, we tend to stay here because it's very comfortable. Whereas the zone of genius is actually a little bit scary. And if you've ever read the book, The Alchemist by, is it Pablo Coelho, I think is how you say that? It talks some about this, that the hardest thing to do is the thing you most want to do, because if you put your whole self into it and you fail, what does that say about you? And so the zone of genius is that piece that is uniquely you, that you can do better than anyone else. And so I think, I was thinking about this in terms of myself as I'm reading this book, because I feel like I've hit in life, sometimes you have growth and then you plateau, and then you have growth and you plateau. It's the same in sports. And
Right.
sometimes right before a plateau, you actually suck worse than you did before, because you're trying to change things. And when you introduce change, you usually have a dip in performance before you see the dramatic increases.
Yeah,
And
because
so,
you're struggling.
right. And so this has been like, as I'm building this business and trying to think strategically about how we staff it, what parts of the work do I love? What parts of the work am I good at versus not good at? These are the questions that are top of mind. And so the first genius question that Gay Hendricks puts into the book is, what do I most love to do? Because zone of excellence, you can be extremely good at something, but that doesn't mean that it's the thing you love most to do in the world. Whereas zone of genius, like you're going to do this almost no matter what. And I think was it Daniel Pink?
I was just thinking of Daniel Pink's deal. Yeah. With his writing, right? With his wife had that question.
People kept asking him, they kept saying like, follow your passion. What are you passionate about? And he's like, I'm not passionate about anything.
Right.
Right. And so this is right. And this is where we keep going back to purpose instead of passion, because passion is a feeling that comes and goes, but purpose is something you can hold on to.
Right.
And his wife asked him, well, what do you do all the time? And the answer was writing, right?
Yeah.
Like he just does it. No matter what was going on in his life, he was doing that. And sometimes I don't think we recognize that could actually be a clue.
Yeah. And it's, where do you get into that you would get into whether you got paid to do it or not? Right. And I think that's that indicator. And I heard something else the other day that talked about that. And because you mentioned this idea of struggle and those other pieces, doing what you most love to do doesn't mean you're not going to struggle with it. And so she had a coach that gave her sort of a rubric. She says, and she called it the thirds. About a third of the time, whatever you're doing, you should really love it and feel like you're killing it. About a third of the time, you should be like, it was okay. And about a third of the time you should be struggling and hate it. And if you're in that ratio, then you're in the right ratio, right? Because if you hate it all the time and you're struggling all the time and it's 3/3 of the time, it's probably not your jam, right? And if you're loving it all the time and 3/3 of the time you're loving it, it may be an indicator that you're not pushing yourself hard enough. And so trying to find that kind of middle ground where you're like, yeah, this is cool and I'm growing. But I think just because we love to do it doesn't mean we don't struggle with it.
Right.
It doesn't mean that's not hard, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So I asked myself that question, and I don't know what this says about me, but there was a piece of me which I hope was sort of joking, but the first thought that came to mind was, what if I most love to hear myself talk? I mean, I think there's
the right place.
Sometimes I don't want to hear myself talk at all, if I'm being honest. But I think like even just thinking about this at a personal level, the thing that most drives me is imparting wisdom that helps people grow. And so, but I'm a lead by example kind of person. And I think this is why I like things like speaking engagements, but I also like the one-on-one conversation. Right. It's about growth drivers. I mean, that is, if I had to, I think it was when we did our strengths finder and everybody had to say one word that described the other person on our team. And I think mine was growth. Like, right. It's just right there. Like, I like pushing through the hard stuff, even though I hate pushing through the hard stuff. It's, yeah. I can do that for hours, right?
Because
the communicating with other humans, the building the connection. And I think we had a conversation this weekend where you were like, yeah, your superpower is connection, right? Just building that authentic, intense, like, what's going on? Tell me what's really happening, where people don't feel judged and they feel like they can see who they could become and who they are right now. And both are okay. Yeah, and I love having those conversations.
Yeah. And it's just like Mike with his, I need to get an upgrade to the room and I'm just going to have a conversation for 5 seconds and they will just give me whatever I want. It's like, how does that happen? What? I don't know. And so it's funny watching you in meetings on some of those things and having people sort of watching people react to you on those pieces, is that they just go, I don't know why I just told you that. Like, I don't know how many times I've had somebody or heard someone say that, like, I don't know why I just opened up and just, emotionally vomited all over you about what's going on in my life. And I'm like,
yes,
that has never happened to me. Right. And so it's like, damn it. What's super, because seeing superpower in other people is easier to see than seeing it in yourself.
It's easier to identify it in other people for sure than it is in yourself, because again, you can see when other people do things, hey, that's special. But when you do it, because it's probably routine at this point in your life, you don't even realize you're doing it.
Yeah, you're not.
So let's go to question number 2. What work do I do that doesn't seem like work? And I know, like, for us in this business, I think they're the hardest part, and the reason that people fail out of being financial advisors is that the hardest part is convincing people that they need our help. Right? I mean,
Right.
it's like if you're buying a house, you have to have a mortgage unless you're paying cash, and you have a timeline because you're under contract. So you have to get that done. But when you're talking about things like making investments, or, buying a life insurance policy, or any of those types of things,
Right.
I mean, like, things keep going if you're not doing those things. And
Right.
so
There's no sense
that
of urgency.
idea, yeah, that building a relationship of trust on the front end and establishing credibility. Oh my gosh. Like, I will do that all day long. You want to talk about your money? Guess what? I want to talk about it with you. Like, that
Right.
is my jam. But there are definitely, I mean, I look to you and Megan in our office from a technical perspective. Y'all beat me every day. Right. That's why I'm like, woo, I'm just going to surround myself with people who are smarter than me and go talk.
Well, my love language is a spreadsheet, so
Yeah.
it's just different.
Right. But I think, it takes all kinds, right? The sum of the parts is greater. Wait, no, the whole is
Got to be your
greater
goal.
than the sum of the parts. Why can't I get that right? Did I get it right? I don't know.
None of us as smart as all of us.
Sure. We are killing it today, by the way.
Zone of incompetence. Here we go.
Quick, let's move. Yeah, let's move to number 3. Okay, so the third question is, what work activities produce the highest abundance for the least time spent?
And I think this one is so insidious because it hits that upper limit problem over and over and over again. I think for so many people, it's like, man, shouldn't making money in this area be really, really hard? Shouldn't I have to struggle with this? Shouldn't this require more of my time and more work? And so I think we don't do it because we feel like it's a dodge. Like, no. This
It's
needs
like a
to be
cheat
harder.
code.
Right. Yeah. Up, down, left, right, whatever it is, right? You're like, you've figured out something that you do well, you make money at it, or whatever your version of money at that
guilt
point.
shows up. This is too easy.
It's too
I'm
easy.
missing something. Yeah.
Right. And I remember playing drums with a guy, and he would just figure out, he could look at a sheet of music and just kind of figure it out. And I'm like struggling with each note going, okay, I got to do this. But he just like picked it up, and he's like, I don't understand. This is just easy. What are we struggling with? I hate you, Danny.
But that goes to excellence versus genius, right? There are things that you can do. Like, I can build a plan, and it is a really good plan, but there are other people in our office who can build them better and faster, and who are going to ask a question that changes the output. And that's why I want them in our office, because I can communicate really well. Like, you give me something complex, I can make it easy, I can make it approachable, I can make sure that people understand the important parts of it, and I can distill that down. But the actual building part and then the maintenance part, like, that's why we have other people in our office besides just me. And I remember this actually when we were looking at some algorithm-based trading, and we got to meet one of the inventors of one of the algorithms that we use in portfolios as a hedge.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, God, this guy is amazing, but I wouldn't want him doing the actual execution.
Heck no. Yeah.
And he had a team, right? And that I was like, okay, I've met his team. I feel comfortable with his team, but he was the genius that created it.
He was the mad scientist. Yeah.
Right. You don't want the mad scientist doing the maintenance. You want them inventing the thing, and then someone else can take it from there. And I think acknowledging that is really important.
But man, what a huge ego trip that's got to be, and trying to tame your ego, right? I've heard of so many entrepreneurs that have this really amazing idea, widget, Flugelbinder, whatever it is that they're building, and they want to go out and get private equity, and they want to get hedge or venture capital to go make this a reality. And one of the first things the venture capital guys do is kill the guy off from being the CEO of the company. Like, look, you need to be in the back with your weird goggles on and making this stuff. We'll run the company. And so many of them have a hard time
Letting
staying
go.
in that role because of the ego. And it's an upper limit problem, thinking, man, I got to do it all in order to make it happen, knowing that no, if you just stay where your genius is, it's not staying where your genius is, it's letting your genius flourish. But if you try to do all these other things, you're going to be so diluted. You don't have time and the emotional energy to do the thing that really makes you amazing.
Well, I think excellence pulls you offside. I mean, I remember having
Totally
a
does.
conversation with you about the Warren Buffett rule, where he basically says, like, make a list of everything that you're good at and then prioritize one or two. And those are the things you do, and you get rid of everything else.
Yep.
And so when I look at like my zone of excellence, I love the one-on-one conversation with the client and building the plan. But I can only help so many people if I'm building every plan for people that talk to us, and the same for you, right? I mean, you can only help so many people if it is just you doing every part. And
Yeah.
so building a team and then empowering the team to do that means that I can't take every client that comes through the door. Right. And I mean, you've seen me struggle with that. I'm like, I am so tied in. I want to help people, that saying, oh, I'm going to let someone else help you. I'm like, well, even just saying that right now, like I can feel my posture changing.
But are they going to do the job I would do? And it's like, well, no, they're not going to.
But they might, honestly. I mean, I think like, I think that when you look at our team, I think they're honestly just as good as me.
Right.
It's not like you're getting a different plan because you're working with someone else in our office. You're getting the same plan. And in some cases it's better, right? But that means I have to let go.
Yeah, but think about, not to belabor the point, because we're going to get out of here, but the idea of that zone of genius is knowing that thing that you do that literally no one else can do. And it's scary to focus on that, because that means that choice of yes here is no to lots of other stuff.
So that's
and your identity
fourth
is
question.
And your identity is in that stuff.
Yeah. So that fourth question is, what is my unique ability? Which is what you're saying. Yeah. You should spend your time in your unique ability, and everything else should be done by someone else.
But there's so much of your identity.
Even if you enjoy it. Even if you enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really hard. So that unique ability, if you don't know what yours is, ask everybody around you.
Everybody else can see it. You can't.
Right. You're gonna find that there is a consensus. If you ask enough people that are in your life, there will be a consensus of here's your unique skill set. And I would recommend that you ask it at a personal level and also at a professional level. Because if you're asking, if I'm asking a coworker, what's my unique ability? I'm going to get a different answer than if I'm asking my next door neighbor, what's my unique ability?
Yeah.
But I think what you'll find is there are threads that weave themselves through both the personal and the professional. And so if you can ask yourself those 4 questions, I think you end up in a very, very different position. So I'm going to pull them up real quick and just read them back to back.
By the way, I would ask your kids too. I would be fascinated to find out what your kids would say.
Did you ask your kids?
No, but I will now, because
I like that.
Could be a really fascinating question. Sorry.
Okay, so just a quick recap. Question number 1, what do I most love to do? Question number 2, what work do I do that doesn't seem like work? And that may actually be something that you're doing at home, like it may be actually gardening, So number 3, what work activities produce the highest abundance for the least time spent? And then number 4, what is my unique ability? Right? And write those things down, because those are the things that are going to get you through that upper limit problem, tie you into the purpose, and give you clarity on what you should be doing to grow. So hopefully you guys found some value in today's discussion. If you're looking for me, you can find me at The Wealth Woman, wherever you social media. Eric, where can they find you?
And I'm at Economics with Eric, wherever you social media.
We'll see you